everybody. This is Margie Meacham of Learning to Go, and you are listening to another episode of the Learning to Go podcast where we talk about the science of learning with all kinds of interesting people. Today, my guest is Megan Murphy. She is the Executive Director of the National Coalition of Girls Schools, NCGS. And this organization is on the forefront of girls' education. It's been there for over a quarter century. They're the leading advocate for girls' schools, connecting and collaborating globally with individuals, schools, and organizations dedicated to educating and empowering girls. And just a little bit of personal disclosure. I, in fact, went to a girls' high school and a girls' college. So there's a little bit of personal interest in my catching up with Megan and finding out what's going on in this particular space in education today. So welcome, Megan. Please tell us about your work at the National Coalition of Girls Schools.
Sure, Margie. Thanks so much for having us. The National Coalition of Girls Schools is the leading advocate for girls' schools. Currently, our coalition has close to 240 member schools. They come in all different shapes and sizes. They are independent schools, they are charter schools, they're public schools. They're located mostly in North America, although we have 16 other countries, I think, represented outside of North America. They're day schools, they're boarding schools, but what they have in common, Margie, is a real belief in the transformative experience that girls have at girls' schools. And we really do four things on behalf of our member schools. We conduct, we disseminate, and we sponsor research on the importance of girls' education. We provide networking opportunities for our faculty and staff, as well as our graduates, to come together. We do an awful lot of professional development where we will convene national, regional, and international gatherings for our educators to exchange best practices in girls' learning. And then we simply do advocacy. We're out there in the public championing what we think are the unique benefits of all girls' schools.
Okay, well, that brings me to my next question. Let's talk about that. What is the rationale of girls-only education?
Sure. Well, I think at its essence, girls' schools are places where girls take center stage. Girls are at the heart of every single curricular and programmatic decision that's made at girls' schools. So every single team that's fielded, every single club that's established, every facility that's built is done so with the learning style of girls in mind. So girls' schools are places that really capitalize on girls' unique learning styles. And what we see is that creates an environment of achievement and a place where girls really find their voice and learn how to use it. Keep in mind that at a girls' school, a girl occupies every single role. So every student body president, every editor of the newspaper, is a girl. And I think that that's why we see, for example, so many girls pursuing graduate degrees and entering areas such as undergraduate study that where we don't find many women. So at its core, girls' schools are places where girls find their voices.
Well, and I'd like to do a follow-up question on that because in a co-ed school, you mentioned these roles. I believe it's true, but you would know better, that very often the girls still, they have a role, but it will be subordinate. So the editor of the newsletter will be a boy, the girl will be the assistant editor, the president of the student body will be a boy, and so on. So you still see girls moving into leadership positions, but very often either by choice or by the politics of the situation, they end up in that second role, not the leadership role. Is that true?
That's right, Margie. Our research shows us that 93% of the graduates of our girls' schools say they were offered greater leadership opportunities than their peers at co-ed schools. That's pretty profound. That's 93%.
It
And,
is.
and about 80% of girls at girls' schools have held some type of leadership position before she graduates. And so to be able to take that leadership experience with them to their post-secondary study, we think is enormous.
Well, and we know from neuroscience that what's happening at these early formative years is that the neural networks are forming that allow these young women to see themselves as leaders. And so when their brain gets into the habit of believing in that way, that changes everything. That can really change the course of someone's life. So I can readily believe that the benefits are supported by your research.
I often say, Margie, that girls need to see it to be it. And, you know, at a girls' school, girls have a wealth of peer role models. It's one of the major reasons why we think at girls' schools, girls persist in science, technology, engineering, and math at such high rates. In fact, girls' school graduates are 6 times more likely to consider majoring in math, science, or technology compared to girls who attend co-ed schools. And that's because they see day in and day out every single student who's involved in the science Olympiads, every single student who's taking advanced calculus or computer science, and every single girl who's competing on the robotics team is a fellow student. And to have that opportunity, particularly at a young age, to see the older students at your girls' schools pursuing their passion in STEM, technology, engineering, and math, we know that that plays a really big role in why we're seeing girls' school graduates being 6 times more likely to consider these STEM subjects.
So Megan, if somebody is listening and they have a daughter or a niece or a girl close to them and they want to explore this option for the girls in their life, where do they go to get information?
I always encourage parents to begin to ask themselves a series of questions, mostly about where their daughter is enrolled currently, if that's the case. For example, some questions are, how well does my daughter's current school listen to parents and encourage meaningful partnerships? Another good question are girls actively involved? Are they called upon and encouraged to participate equally in the classroom? Does my daughter's current school support girls' sports as much as boys? And how well are girls persisting in higher level math, science, and technology classes at each prospective school? And then finally, I think it's always great, Margie, to ask people in your network, what do parents of other girls say about the school where their daughter's enrolled? To learn specifically about all of the girls' schools in North America, parents can go to our website at www.ncgs.org for a pretty comprehensive directory of girls' schools.
Okay, and that link, as well as some social media links and some resource documents, will be posted on our sites for those of you who are listening to this podcast and want to follow up. So Megan, what is the best way for someone to get in touch with you?
By going to our website. They're also welcome to email us at ncgs.org. And we're also really active on Facebook and Twitter.
Okay, and again, those links are in our write-up. So here's a question I ask every guest, and I love the answers I get. What are you working on right now that's got you most excited?
It's probably our Global Forum on Girls Education that's coming up on June 18th, 19th, and 20th. It will be hosted in Washington, D.C. And we convened the first ever Global Forum on Girls Education back in 2016. And that convening drew approximately 1,000 advocates and educators and research from 23 different countries who came together to talk about the learning style of girls, best practices, and the healthy development of girls. So we're going to be hosting that global convening again in June of 2018, and we're really excited for the outcomes and the exchanges that will occur from that conference.
Okay, great. And I encourage everybody to check it out, learn more about it, see if it might be for you or that special girl in your life. I'm Margie Meacham with the Learning to Go podcast, and we've been talking with Megan Murphy, the Executive Director of the National Coalition of Girls Schools. Megan, so much for your time today, and thank you for the great work you're doing in advocating the future of all of our wonderful girls.
Thank you, Margie. It's great to be with you.